Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for a panel discussion on the Indigenous Guardians program. I'm really excited today that we're joined by Sealaska Chairman Joe Nelson, our Regional Forester Dave Schmid, our Environmental Coordinator Ray Paddock, and our Sustainable Southeast Partnership Director Wolfe. Today's panel will share information on the Indigenous Guardians program. And as I said, I'm very excited about today's conversation, and I want to thank all of you for joining us. Before we begin, I'd like to give you all an opportunity to introduce yourself, and I'll just go in the direction that I see you on here. So Dave, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, good afternoon, President Peterson, and thank you so much for the invite. I am Dave Schmid. I am serving as the Regional Forester for the Forest Service here in Alaska. I spent well over 20 years living and working primarily in rural Alaska, and I've really had the privilege and honor of being back here and serving as the Regional Forester the last 3 years. So thank you, and looking forward. This is an exciting opportunity, President Peterson.
Great. Ray Paddock.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Peterson. I'm Raymond Paddock. My Tlingit name is Kusatan. I am Kagwantan of the Eagle's Nest House. I'm the Environmental Coordinator for the Central Council of Tlingit and Haida in the Native Lands and Resources Department.
Great. Joe?
Thank you, President Peterson. My Tlingit name is Kachaku. I'm a brown bear, KQAD from Yakutat, child of the Quashkakwan. Streaming today from Akwan in Juneau, and happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Gunalchéesh, how about you, Joe? And Ralph.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for asking for me to be here. My name is Ralph Wolfe. I was born and raised in Craig on Prince of Wales, and I live in Yakutat with my wife and 2 kids. I'm the program director for the Sustainable Southeast Partnership through Spruce Root. I also sit on the executive council for Tlingit and Haida as the 6th VP. Thanks.
Great. Well, you know, again, I can't tell you how excited I am about this topic. The Indigenous Guardians program seeks to support Alaska Native communities in expressing our inherent sovereignty by applying our ecological knowledge and sustainable ways of living to monitor, protect, restore, and manage our homelands and waters. You know, the Indigenous Guardians Network offers technical and social support to grow the capacity of Alaska Native residents of Southeast Alaska to achieve our goals for environmental stewardship and co-management of our homelands and waters. This is something we've been working towards, gosh, for probably 10 or 15 years. You know, and I know many of us tribal leaders in Southeast have watched a similar program develop in British Columbia with the First Nations and their federal government. So I'm really excited. You know, just to get us started, start with some questions. Maybe turning to Dave. Or all of you, if anybody wants to jump in, what are some of the other organizations that are also partnering with this program in Alaska?
Yeah, so I'll jump in here and then add to it. And so this program, you know, is broader than just the partnership here, you know, between the Forest Service and the Tlingit Haida Council as well. I know some of the other partners that are really involved are certainly Spruce Root that's here, the Alaska Conservation Foundation, you know, Sealaska, to name a few. You know, and then I think, you know, the Sustainable Southeast Partnership is really an umbrella term for, you know, this broader set of partners. President Peterson, I've also heard and know that there are other federal partners like EPA that have also expressed interest in collaborating and joining, but I would certainly turn that back to other folks here on the call if they want to share more.
Great. Does anybody have anything to add on the partners?
Yeah, sure. I'd just like to recognize thank you, Dave, also recognize the tribes that are currently partnering as well. The Hoonah Indian Association, Organized Village of Cake, And there's been some participation as well from the organized village of Kisan. And just to put out there too, this is a growing partnership. So I'm very confident we'll be seeing other Southeast tribes with their hands in this partnership as well in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Ray. You know, if you're not involved now, don't feel like you can't be if you represent one of the tribes. And honestly, you know, Sealaska has been a tremendous partner, and I think that really opens the door for our village corporations too. And I think, you know, they're major quantity in Southeast landholder and resources, and we, you know, would love to have those conversations to bring them in board and see what, you know, that it's a mutual win-win. Dave, the Forest Service signed a long-term agreement with Tlingit and Haida to support the creation of this Indigenous Guardians program for Southeast. Can you tell us about what the agreement is between us and the Forest Service and how it works?
Sure. Thanks, President Peterson. I'd start by, as you know, you and I have had many conversations over the years here. Our relationship goes back more than 20 years now. And, you know, we've talked about really what needs to be done and how best to get that done. And you know, my expectation here when we signed this agreement was that it represented one step. And I see this as a good step toward furthering, you know, and integrating, you know, this traditional and technical knowledge and perspectives of the Indigenous Guardians Network, you know, partners, you know, incorporating that into the land management in a shared stewardship, co-management approach to, you know, to managing activities on the Tongass National Forest. My highest priority for our work is to meet the needs of the people, you know, in our communities who depend on these forest resources for food security, for health, and especially these days, sustainable economies as well. And so I guess in brief, that's what, you know, when we signed on here, that I saw as being really important, President Peterson.
You know, thank you, Dave. You know, maybe can you share a little bit about what your expectations and goals upon signing this agreement were?
So, you know, there's a couple of things here I think that are important, as you know, and maybe what it doesn't replace and what's there is, first and foremost, the Forest Service, you know, has a responsibility to engage all tribal nations in, you know, in regular, meaningful, and robust consultation. And as an agency, you know, for me, we've not always done a great job in this arena at times. And so part of that, you know, one of my goals was in moving this forward is, and maybe on a side note, was really to build and maybe rebuild some of that trust. And I'm really committed to that. I think there's, as you can see here, there's some great goals here. You know, our adding capacity around watershed restoration, you know, activities here, you know, looking at protecting heritage sites, and there are, you know, a host of areas here, as well as how important, as I shared at the beginning, you know, I lived 25 years in rural Alaska, and how important access to subsistence resources and also the process that's in place here around the Federal Subsistence Board that I serve as a member on is really engaging with the partners and the tribal community in here on how their voices can be more, you know, can resonate and be more effective and can be heard, and how they can shape, you know, some of those decisions that affect folks. But that's a couple of areas there, President Peterson.
Great. You know, for me, it's the idea that we can co-manage these resources, that we can have a voice at the table, you know, and certainly, you know, I'm very clear about it not just being Tlingit and Haida, that, you know, our village tribes be at the table, our corporations, and you know, we even have independent groups. I think about, there's a really great bunch of women in Háw'aa they developed this group, We Can, and they've made trips to DC. They've been advocating, and I think this is a forum, a vehicle for us all to express our voices, to bring our intimate relationship as Alaska Native, Southeast Tlingit and Haidas, our indigenous knowledge, that traditional ecological knowledge, and have a way for us to express that, and to be able to not just express it, but to actively participate and talk about our resources, protect our resources, and utilize our resources as we have for 10,000 years. And I think that's really important. So Dave, through the agreement, Tlingit and Haida in the Alaska region of the Forest Service are seeking to ensure the integration of diverse perspectives into the stewardship efforts. What are some of those stewardship efforts?
Yeah, so I think President Peterson, I come back, and I look at, just some of the goals here in areas around watershed restoration. This is an area that I think is really important to folks here, and how we approach that. I'm looking again, just to back up a little bit, to our last question here. It's, what is this relationship? And it's different. We have spoken before, the term stakeholders and partners, and I see this relationship with the tribes. It's not as a stakeholder, it's a sovereign nations, and our responsibilities around that. And so the areas, I look at working, moving forward, as you've just shared. It's not just about input and back and forth. It's about identifying what those priorities out there, sharing that responsibility, sharing in some of the decision making, and sharing where we put our emphasis. And then again, I'd go back to some of the areas here that we've talked about as goals, and in here, one certainly is in watershed restoration, and looking at a lot of the important resources that were affected here. Many of those, back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, with a lot of the logging that occurred in Southeast Alaska, and they didn't have the same protections in place that we have today. And so there's some areas there that I think we can collaborate on and work to restore and repair a number of those watersheds through aquatic passage, and removing some of the fish barriers around culverts, looking at in-stream work, getting woody debris and complexity back in the streams, and also, another program areas around thinning a number of the areas in second growth, young growth stands to improve for wildlife habitat. So these are all areas and part of the agreement where I think where we can work on with folks in collaboration to identify where are those priorities, where should we be putting our resources forward. And then again, I talked about the other areas here around protection of certainly heritage sites and those areas that are culturally and important and sacred to a number of the folks here.
So Dave, I think you really answered one of my questions, and what's watershed restoration, but you also just mentioned heritage sites. And, I guess what I want to know, what do you consider heritage sites?
So I would look, I would share with what our archaeologists, they've spent a lot of time, and they know of right now, they've identified, I think it's like more than 6,000 pre-contact historic cultural resources on both the forest. I also manage responsibilities with the Chugach as well as the Tongass. And these are, like I said, these historic cultural sites, and these sites, bear witness to more than 10,000 years of Alaska Native, as well as some recent European and American settlement. And so, our program here looks at, it's kind of a twofold effort in our heritage, what we call our heritage program. There's an emphasis on, on gathering knowledge and sharing and learning and supporting knowledge around those sites, as well as, and making sure there's a compliance side of that as well, in terms of preserving those sites and, under a number of the historic protection preservation laws. And it really just seeks to encourage site protection through public awareness and stewardship. Through this program, I think we can develop some goals to monitor and protect these kind of sites throughout, certainly throughout Southeast Alaska, as an important piece.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about the federal subsistence management program?
Yeah, something that actually I thank you, President Peterson. I think this is, maybe talk a little bit about what it strives to do and as well. But this is a program, the Federal Subsistence Management, that was an outcome of ANILCA in areas, and that at least on federal lands, that there was a preference for rural users and access to those subsistence resources, the harvest, especially of fish and wildlife, by rural Alaskans. And this is a board that's set up. It's across the state of Alaska. It's an 8-member board. It's made up of 3 public members, and then the regional directors, the other 5 are of the federal agencies, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and my counterparts there, as well as with the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I would also share that right now the chair, Tony Anthony Christensen from Heidelberg, is the chair of that, and has been an incredible leader on that board as well. There's an important component to the board here in the Southeast. They just met last week. I had an opportunity to interact, at least briefly, and that's the Regional Advisory Councils. And those are a FACA committee under the Federal Advisory Committee system, and they provide an opportunity and an effort to facilitate the public input of rural residents here, especially in Southeast Alaska. And they make recommendations that come up through the board on regulatory proposals. And so this is a really important piece in how that happens. In fact, the board almost always supports the decisions, the recommendations of those RACs, unless they don't meet some really big overarching criteria, and that's the place we start. And then again, how does this partnership maybe relate to that? I think through the Indigenous Guardians program, here's an opportunity to really increase that information sharing around that program, and find ways to increase opportunities for public and really tribal involvement in it. But, thanks for that question. That's a good area to explore.
Great. Again, thanks, Dave. I guess this question's kind of for everybody, but do any of you have any advice for our youth and our concerned tribal citizens on how to take better care of our environment, how to advocate and protect our traditional way of life?
I can start just real briefly. Thanks, President Peterson and Dave. A starting point in my thought is number one, practicing it. It can be a full-time job. It is a full-time job just to understand and be able to practice our way of life, and nobody else is going to do it for us. So we really need to be at every level, deepening our knowledge, connecting with our elders more, and understanding everything we're doing on the land and ocean, and connecting. So practicing it is my main advice.
Great. Ralph?
I could jump onto that too, and living it, right? And it's up to us to teach those practicing skills on. I take great pride in that with my 2 kids, but you really have to live it and practice and reciprocate it around, because that's a lot of our values are around reciprocation and making sure that these traditions are passed on. Taking on to what Joe said.
Great. Turning Joe, to you, what is the role of Sealaska with the Indigenous Guardians program?
Yeah, at Sealaska, our mission is to strengthen our people, our culture, and our homelands. And we can't do that alone. So it's a big mission. It's a long-term purpose, and we need partners. One immediate thing that we've been doing for some years, it's through Spruce Root, which is serving as the backbone to Sustainable Southeast. Spruce Root was born out of an effort at Sealaska. We continue to support it. It's a nonprofit that it's affiliated with Sealaska. So that's a core thing. And moving beyond that, and this is awesome to be where we're at in this moment for this program. It's going to be this idea of following the lead of our communities, following the lead of our villages, following the lead of the tribes, and really trying to help on the network side and connecting folks and advocating and just having that deeper awareness. We feel we need to feel the pulse of the villages a little more closely, and we do that by having these relationships. And this program just has so much potential to get us that much closer to achieving our purpose of protecting our land and our culture and our homelands.
Great. So Joe, how do you see the Guardians program collaborating in the future with Sealaska and other Southeast Native corporations?
Yeah, I think Ray mentioned early on, the partner list needs to double in the next few months and needs to triple in the next couple of years. And it's really the local on the ground tribes and village corps that hopefully, respond to the invitation and at our level, sort of at the regional level with the tribe and Sealaska. Our job is to help convene, help share information, help network. But on another whole nother realm, it really is to change the game, to change the narrative. We, for too long, have been, as Indigenous people, kind of caught between extraction pressures and conservation pressures, and we sometimes take the bait and pick one side or the other. When at the end of the day, the extractive forces and the conservation forces, they need to follow our lead. We've been here a long time. We're going to be here a long time. Our Indigenous values are going to protect the land if we're practicing our way of life. So it's really that other education and policy advocacy, I think, is a key part to shape our own minds, because they're not going to be Indigenous experts other than us. So let's kick it up a notch and help each other. Make those connections and share our Indigenous knowledge with each other, and then push it out farther.
Great, thanks. So Ray, and then Joe, what are Tlingit and Haida and Sealaska's goals with the partner stewardship in terms of tribal citizens and shareholders?
Thanks, President Peterson. Yeah, Joe kind of hit the nail on the head there with stating that we do need to follow community leads. What our villages are saying, what our tribal citizens and shareholders are saying that are expressing the direction that we need to go into. And in that regards, I think it comes back to just listening to what their concerns are, and that helps us shape this program and what we need to do in order to push to get to those goals.
Great. Joe?
Yeah, I would add, one of the more obvious ones that people do understand, it's the need on the economy side. So jobs, this needs to help. We need to find a lane and continue to channel resources here and have our jobs where we're connected with the land and it's taking care of us. We take care of the land, it takes care of us. But that goal setting really is going to be a work in progress, community by community, and we build those things together, I think.
And just to add to that too, this, a lot of the work that we're doing here, there's a lot of stewardship aspect to it too. But like Joe said, looking to create and diversify our economies in Southeast Alaska is a big part of it as well.
So Ray, can you tell us more about how other organizations are involved with the program and how they contribute to the cause?
Well, yeah, this is really a unique partnership, as mentioned, as we see on the panel right now. It's one that's kind of new and really interesting in all aspects. We have everything like what Joe said. We have people from conservation groups, we have federal government, ANCSA corporations, and tribes, and we all have kind of different aspects of what we see as what we want, but we're all working together to accomplish one common goal. And this is something new, and we're building together. It's exciting at the same time. Granted, we don't know what it looks like, but we're all at the table working together to do this. So it's a new direction, and I don't really have a definitive answer other than the fact that we're just sitting at the table working together to accomplish this.
Great. Can Joe and Ray, can you share some of the potential collaborations that you're excited to possibly work alongside of?
I'll offer one lane here that's already been mentioned, and it always comes up, and it's for rightfully so. It's our youth. There's so much opportunity here to change the game, just not on just stewardship, but our education system, how our communities work together. So I think I'm excited about the youth being front and center in this project and these ideas, because it just makes so much sense. Our education system, it didn't happen, by being, locked inside a classroom all day long. So we need to shift the balance of our education systems. And I think this is an awesome opportunity to tackle, to get in there a little bit on that.
Yeah, to add to that too, you think of, when we're thinking of guardians, at least in my thought process, a lot of it is stewardship of our environmental and natural resource concerns, but it delves deeper than that. Like, as Joe mentioned, it's our education process too, getting our youth involved. So just to add on to that, yeah, definitely the youth is one huge exciting aspect of future collaboration that we can see. Other parts of that though too, when we add in right now, again, this is a new partnership where we're seeing federal government agencies sit at the table. One to add to that though too is we hope to get the state of Alaska involved in the long run. It's something I think that will help benefit the goal for all of us.
Well, I think you just kind of touched on this next question a little bit there, but to both, again, Ray and Joe, what are ways you want to expand this partnership, or some of the goals for the future?
Really quickly, just to add to that too, we mentioned getting the state on board and possible other federal agencies. And going back to the earlier questions though too, I think it's imperative that we get our other village tribes and other ANCSA corporations involved in this as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Ray on those. And one thing I offer on this expansion, this idea is adopting, and we already have it, we know it's in our hearts, that these ocean and these waterways here, they connect us. It doesn't divide us. So this Pacific Ocean connects us to Indigenous people all around the Pacific, and just like the Marine Highway connects all of our communities. So viewing the ocean as a connective force, and we heard early on that we're not creating something brand new really here, because just down the coast, our relatives in British Columbia really been doing this for a while. I encourage folks to look at the work they're doing and help find some inspiration there. And then reach, over across to our Hawaiian relatives are planning a Pacific voyage in a couple of years, and they're going to come passing through all of our Indigenous communities all around the Pacific. And it really just fits in neatly, I think, this idea of Indigenous-led stewardship. It is a thing the world needs right now, and we're knocking on the door, and we're getting ready to do something that's pretty powerful. And so I think there's endless amount of room for partnerships.
Yeah, I hesitate to do this, but I think I need to address some comments that I'm seeing pop up. And I'll just be really direct. I don't, if anybody knows me, I'm direct. I'm looking at Tommy Gamble's comments, and he put in a resolution at last tribal assembly for something similar, and I think he's feeling like this idea was stolen. We've been working on this Guardians program with these partners for a number of years. In fact, back in, I think it was 2019, Joe, myself, folks from Nature Conservancy, Organized Village of Cake, Hoona Indian Association, we actually traveled to BC to meet with them who are doing a similar program. And Dave Schmid here as a regional forester can say, we've been talking about exactly this program and modeling the Guardians network in BC and the Watchman program in Haida for, gosh, 15, 20 years. We've been trying to make this happen. I'm sorry that there's a feeling that this is a stolen idea, and I'm sorry that folks feel left out. The door is open, the table's set to come join us. We're not trying to exclude anybody. It's a similar thought line. It's, and this is something we've been working on. This isn't new. It's new that we just finally signed it, and there's been some real momentum there. But looking at the folks on this panel, we've been working on this. People know it was actually my whole adult career. This has been a life dream of mine to be a part of it. Anthony Christensen in Heidelberg, Rob Sanderson. We put work in with the Forest Service and laid track and working with Sealaska for, again, 15 to 20 years to get to where we're at today. This isn't a new idea. And I'm really sorry that that's the sentiment or feeling, but it's just not the case. And so I have to address that and be clear about that. So anyways, I'll move on, but I felt the need to address that because I feel bad if anybody thinks their work or anything was stolen. It wasn't. I would turn to Ralph. Ralph, you introduced yourself as the director for the Sustainable Southeast Partnership. Can you explain what is Sustainable Southeast role in this partnership between us and the U.S. Forest Service?
I feel like the partnership brings in that area of collaboration. Our network covers the whole region from Yakutat down to Heidelberg, with partners dashed along in between, and we're hoping to grow that, right? We're hoping to bring these folks to the table, and part of our dream there is we've been talking about this for quite some time too. I think that was part of the idea behind starting the Sustainable Southeast Partnership as a collaboration network. And we've got some programs and projects of our own that have kind of taken off and laid some groundwork also, like the Kikwan Forest Partnership and the Hoona Native Forest Partnership as co-management ideals that have really upped the game for partnerships with agencies and tribes and villages. We're about bringing partners to the table, being able to be along with TNH and Sealaska to go to the First Nations and see the direct work of the Coast Funds and the Guardians program, and just that place to bring everybody together and kind of collaborate at a different level that hasn't been really happening.
So Ralph, are there any other programs like the Indigenous Guardians program?
There are, like I said, the Haida Watchman down in Canada, the CTOR, the Southeast Alaska Tribal Ocean Network, hosted by STA, the Kikwan Forest Partnership down in Cake, the Hoona Native Forest Partnership, the Alaska Youth Stewards, or used to be the Trails Crew, which works directly with youth and getting them out there working on Forest Service lands and with the trails and just getting some ownership there. I really like that program and really hoping to grow that one more. And also there's the Indigenous Sentinels Network out in Northwest AK. But the real work's already happening, right? The real work's happening with tribes and villages at their natural resources departments. They're doing the testing.
Oh, did we lose you, Ralph? You're muted, I think. Ralph, I think we lost your sound. Can you speak? Well, that's the fun of these Zoom meetings, is the technology gets the better of us sometimes. Keep trying to get Ralph back here. Ralph, do you want to try to sign out and sign back in? I'm not the gifted orator like some of our folks. I don't have a good story or joke, so no. I don't know if Ralph can even hear us now, but Ralph, can you hear me? I think you might try signing out and signing back in. Well, I'm not quite sure how to move on. I don't know if Joe, you're intimately involved with the work of Sustainable Southeast Partnership. I wonder if maybe I could ask you, and maybe you can try to answer some of those. Are you comfortable with that, Joe?
Yeah, and Ray's also involved, so we can keep it going. I think Ralph, we just typed in the chat, he's going to try to come back in, but go ahead, President Peterson.
Okay, great. Well, considering Alaska's quickly changing climate, how does this program and stewardship focus on our environment?
That's goes to the heart of I think that this program, in the sense of changing the game on how we approach natural resources and actually view the land. So the key thing here, because sometimes we look at guardians, but then early on the first slide, and we will see it's Indigenous Guardians. Indigenous is the key thing here. So I view this as just a huge opportunity to lead with our values. And when we're doing subsistence right, we know that the local environment's getting taken care of. And that's why we need to be practicing that way of life more, and just connecting more, networking more, so we can support each other. So I think they're kind of part and parcel of each other, that as Native people, I don't know that we think of climate change as this thing as in the Western sense. We've always been adapting to the climate, and we're always engaged and in touch with the environment around us because we use the resources all the time. So I think it's just an avenue to change the whole paradigm on how we think about our relationship with the land and ocean.
Great. Did we get Ralph back? Let's see.
Back.
All right. Okay. So, Ralph, maybe you could talk to a little bit. What is Sustainable Southeast mission with the Southeast Alaska Indigenous Guardian Watchman Network?
So we're here to offer capacity. We're here to offer a place to collaborate and a place to bring all these different agency types together, like TNH, Sealaska, the Forest Service, local village tribes, the environmental conservation groups. We work together with all of these groups on our own right now as like a collective impact network. And, you know, we're really looking to get just thinking outside the box and being able to meet at a place that's healthy and being able to get things done. And you know, part of our mottos in our meetings is taking our hats off at the door, and you're making a statement for yourself. There's no we in the statement. It's I. Just making it comfortable for folks that are doing this, you know.
So, Ralph, are there other communities you hope to extend your reach to?
Absolutely. We have 8 communities that we work with right now in Southeast, but we want to be speaking for both the Guardians and the Sustainable Southeast Partnership. We want to be in every community. We want to touch every corner of the region and be that data hub that we're able to get this information and use it in useful ways and be able to really accelerate our co-management programs that we hope to build and our preservation of resources and thinking about the future, just our way of life, you know.
Great. Can you explain to me, Ralph, what is meant by terrestrial and marine stewardship, and how can we be better stewards for our lands and waters?
Yeah, absolutely. A way we look at it is monitoring, monitoring, protecting, storing data about the resources. And there's many different methods and perspectives through the Guardian network that we want to value, because we want to value all of these methods, like traditional and ecological knowledge, scientific knowledge, and making sure that all of these are taken into consideration, and local knowledge. I mean, there's something about a guy who's been fishing that same grounds for the past 40 years that will know and see differences that we need to take into consideration, as an example, or, the ebb and flow of the herring population throughout the region. Just taking all of these into consideration is definitely part of that.
Great. So can you tell me, does climate change still pose a potential threat to our fish habitats and our traditional way of life?
Absolutely. We have to think about ocean acidification and rising sea levels and hotter water temperatures. I mean, when we see and feel these hotter and warmer temperatures, that directly affects the salmon. Like the eggs can't persevere through hot. They can't persevere through too much rain either, getting all washed away. So all of these shifting changes that are happening through our weather systems and our weather timing is absolutely having effects, and that's directly coming from climate change.
So looking at both Ralph and Dave, what do you see as a solution for unsustainable natural resource extraction, shifts in the global economy? What is a solution for maintaining the community's well-being?
You want to start, Ralph?
Sure. I think the shifting from large scale extractive systems to regenerative systems is a big key that we're looking for. Well, we're looking at, shifting the tourism industry to be less extractive. We're looking at considering the value of taking in how it affects everything from economics to salmon runs to the amount of visitors that come through a place. We're looking at the collaboration that we expect, and not expect, that we hope to get to, and I feel we can, with the tribes and village corporation, regional corporations, the stores, the small businesses, the interagency connection that we are working to build, all to look at the economic, social, and long-term sustainability of these villages and the region. We also look at job creation and how this shift from just extraction to a more sustainable and regenerative resources, and just bringing those jobs back home and making sure they're there for folks is the big thing that we're seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would thank you, Ralph. I couldn't have said that better. I agree with what you're looking at. I would share, the Forest Service as an agency, and we were created, managed under Gifford Pinchot, the nation's forests for the greatest good, the greatest number in the long run, or for the greatest time, and so we are a multiple use. I think the question, around what's sustainable and unsustainable. When I look at that and across Southeast Alaska here, we try to manage those uses as multiple and the best combination, for the public benefit here. And Ralph, really just talked about the importance of that, but also certainly to ensure that future productivity of the land and protecting the environment, and in the middle of all this, we're talking about climate, we're talking about unsustainable, there's political shifts as well. We've found ourselves, in a new administration here recently, and I would share that those underlying foundational pieces and in the mission remains the same, but you know, what I'm seeing here looking forward, you know, around this administration, they've clearly outlined some priorities that are front and center. And, you know, one of those outside of this is certainly recognizing the tribes in a way that we may have not so much before in terms of our responsibilities around nation to nation and trust. But you know, they've really highlighted, you know, the priorities around climate change, the economy, COVID, and especially racial equality. And when I look at, you know, like I said, things aren't changing a lot, but when I look through that lens of those priorities here, you know, I think, you know, this is what this partnership can be all about as well. It's how do we pull that together around, you know, our future choices and land management decisions and you know, and shared stewardship in this part of the world. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more with Ralph.
Thanks. A question for all of our panelists, but how can we better educate, and how can tribal citizens, shareholders better educate themselves on this topic? Maybe I'll turn to Joe first.
Yeah, I mentioned, you know, when we've heard about the other programs are out there, so there's just that basic level of research. One thing I wanted to comment on, since Dave opened the door on this one, though, is the political shifts, and I just view the opportunity here to continue changing the game, because the justice aspect of what's happening here really transcends the politics, and the adversarial nature of the way things are going in the world isn't helping. So I think the Indigenous part of this component of this whole effort really is a healing component. So I think we all need to double down on our own healing, our own taking care of the land and our backyards, and having it take care of us and take care of each other. So I think it really is about practicing that way of life and then sharing it. It goes back to the core of what we really need to do, because I think that's a path that the rest of the world's ready to start following our lead on that.
Great. Ralph, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, and I guess going forward, you know, there's going to be opportunities coming down the line where we'll have meetings and our growth will happen. But we're looking at, you know, there's a webinar that happened that we could share with you guys that happened a couple of months ago that explains a lot of the Guardians network. Whenever we get back together, I'm sure this will be a very big topic within the Sustainable Southeast Partnership. So in the fall, there'll probably be some time there. And like Joe said, looking into these other organizations that are already up and running, I think is key. And that's what we're modeling off of too, trying to help the new regional resource specialist Marco and Ray build this partnership up with Dave and Mike and Melinda. Just really, it's going to be out there. We're just getting started here.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned some of those folks, Ralph. You know, Ray and Marco work for the tribe and really doing an amazing job, and Mike Goldstein and Melinda Hernandez Burke, you know, they're really the troops on the ground making a lot of this happen. Some of us in our positions, we get to get all the glory, which I always kind of feel bad about. And I just want to mention them because they've been doing a phenomenal job. Ray Paddock has been with the tribe for I don't know how many years, Ray, but you know, your heart and soul's in this, and it always shows. And I couldn't be prouder. But you know, I have kind of a comment on this because it's kind of a self-criticism. You know, I think all of us need to do a better job of being inclusive, you know, and you see it in the comments today. You hear it, excuse me, you hear it often, you know, like we're gatekeepers or we're not inclusive. And, you know, it's being said because there's a ring of truth to that. And, I don't think it's intentional, but it happens. And so whether it's intentional or not, it really doesn't matter. And I think we've got to do a stronger job. You know, Ralph mentions the webinar, and I think we got to just promote these things more and be inviting and inclusive, because there's groups on the ground. Tom Gamble points out really good, those out doing the harvesting, those out living our way of life. Not to say we're not living our way of life, but we have a lot of folks out there harvesting and providing, and they see the issues firsthand, and we do need their voices. I'm really impressed with this group. These women, with their 10,000 years of matrilineal knowledge, are leaders. And they weren't elected, they weren't this or that, but we need to recognize that. And so when I hear these criticisms, I don't mind taking criticism, because that's how I can improve, right? But I can't just hear it. We got to do something about it. And so my challenge to this group is, let's do as much as we can to promote this information, to make sure that we're inviting people to the table. Like I said, the door is open and the table is set. Come join us. It's not platitude for me. We got to mean it and walk our talk. And so from the Tlingit and Haida side of this, I'm looking to Ray. Let's make sure we do everything we can so that folks feel like they're heard, feel like they're a part of the solution, feel that we're actually listening to their real knowledge. And, I look at folks, again, like and Tom Gamble. They have real knowledge we need to be listening to. There's no doubt about that. And, if we divide ourselves, somebody else wins. And it's those resources that are going to be harmed. I want to thank our panel. I'm going to turn to our public comments now, and we might go a few minutes over. So if you folks don't mind bearing with me, I really want to make sure we hear from our people who put in questions. Rob Sanderson Jr., one of our vice presidents, asked, how about law enforcement harassment in our villages when practicing our way of life? I think that's really valid. And I know predominantly some of that comes from the state, but, I'm from Prince of Wales. I've had my own run-ins with some of the Forest Service law enforcement and, those things. So I don't know, Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
I appreciate those comments because sitting on the Federal Subsistence Board, we take a lot of public testimony and do a lot of consultation, and I hear a lot of those concerns across the board. And what I would share from the Forest Service, our law enforcement, our special agent here in Juneau has really set a tone. As well. It's about working and serving and helping our rural communities as well. And it's more on education and understanding and work than enforcement. And they're there when people need them. But I know that he in particular has set that those expectations. All that we probably all in different places experienced it, but I know historically, certainly tribal and native populations have experienced that significantly different than others have. And I hope our organization a little bit different. Our law enforcement does not, they don't report through us, although we have a very good working relationship. And I would say that Tim, Walter, our special agent, really sets a good tone. And hopefully, if you hear those things, there is a mechanism to, if there are some issues that I know he will address those, and we do those together. Good question.
Joe, Sealaska is a major landowner and piece in this. What do you have any thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I think this is, kind of a baby step into the new paradigm. A lot of us can agree that the current system really isn't working. The adversarial systems don't work. The law enforcement sort of lane really doesn't work for the local people in general. So I think that's part, this here will create a workforce that can take care of the land, take care of the water, take care of the community. And it's going to shift the narrative when we have a small army of guardians that are doing the work. You know, folks like Tommy, he's a perfect example who should be right in the fold and he'll next phase leading the way on this. And the only reason, I think one of the only reasons that this group came together today is because we're celebrating the fact that the Forest Service and the tribe signed a deal here, and we're wanting to let the world know that times are changing, and we have the federal government, our sovereign tribe, looking out for the best interest of our local people, and we need our local people to step up. So we invite that. I'm with you, President Peterson, on inviting the feedback, and Rob's question is right on there. This is an avenue to help change that. It shouldn't be about law enforcement. It's about community empowerment.
Yeah, and I think it might have been Ray or Ralph in the beginning talked about us needing to get the state involved, which, you know, quite honestly, and I might get in trouble for saying this, is pretty difficult. Not because we don't invite them, they don't show up, and we need them to, you know, and you know that's a reality. As Joe said, if we're going to change the paradigm, if we're going to shape this, they're a big part of that equation, and we really need to figure out how to get them in a meaningful way to the table. Because you know, again, I'm from Prince of Wales, and I've dealt with that harassment firsthand. I mean, I'll be honest, I was called a troublemaker and a rebel because I knew my rights and stood up to them, you know. And Dave probably saw a bit of that when he was the ranger there. I was not soft spoken and I wasn't kind because they really have criminalized our people, you know. And when you live in the village and you live our way of life, our tools are precious, and the first thing they do to you is take your tools, you know. And to me, that's a form of harassment that's got to change. So moving on to another question, Lisa Krieger, is there a map for these heritage sites for us to see and print for our personal reference records? I have something to say on that, but I look both to Joe and Dave on that, because I know heritage sites are extremely sensitive, and I know both your entities do keep records and maps of those, but I don't know, Joe.
Yeah, I'll open. Dave's the one who opened the door on that comment earlier, but it is these aren't public domain things, although they're technically federal title or private title on the western sense of the land. These are precious sites for a reason, and that reason is not intended to. We need to be prepared to manage them and protect them. Is sort of the point. And so their maps probably aren't publicly out there too available on all these sites because it invites desecration. It invites so many challenges and issues that we need to, and it underscores the need for exactly the work we're doing here with the Guardians network idea.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks. The only piece I would add is we have had some examples, even recently on desecrating some very sacred and important cultural historic sites. And you're absolutely right. You know, it's not something we put out on a map. But I would add, you know, if there are areas that certainly need and deserve protection where folks have, you know, that local knowledge, and that's something that the tribes want also, you know, to help protect. There are ways to do that, and certainly, you know, by all means, reaching out to, you know, through the tribal folks and through our staff to assist in that. We have, as Joe said, some trust responsibilities in terms of assisting to protect and manage. But I think that's going to be a key piece of this this partnership as well, and protecting and just educating folks not where they're at, but how important they are, and how meaningful those are to folks.
Thanks for that. From John and Lisa Young, please explain how your organization has helped the herring protectors in their effort to help restore herring in Sitka and other areas. This is one certainly Joe and I can both speak to. You know, Tlingit and Haida and Sealaska financially contributed pretty significantly to the Sitka Tribe of Alaska's lawsuit on this guard. So I know that there's a private group or individuals that have that call themselves the herring protectors. So we didn't contribute to them directly, but we did to the lawsuit. And we recently had a lunchtime chat panel like this with those folks and showed their video and advocated for them. But financially, we contributed to the Sitka Tribe of Alaska's lawsuit. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Right with you on the contribution on the legal side, financially, also just the legal minds and the help and keeping it a priority. And one thing I'd add, it's a federal transition right now in administration, which is always the opportunity to reset priorities, reinforce our priorities, and protecting our way of life is our #1 priority. You know, we at the end of the day, the subsistence management regime is broken. It's a compromise. It's not working, and we're pushing for potential solutions, and we need to stay on that. So it's the policy level as well, looking for the long-term fix. I think is a key thing that we're maintaining as a top priority.
Right.
And just to jump in also,
Oh, go ahead.
President Peterson. Yeah, the SSP has a catalyst at SCS, the Sitka Conservation Society, that does work a lot with the Sitka tribe and is their boots on the ground. Chandler O'Connell's there, and she does so much work with herring protection, and just in Sitka is all over the place.
Right. From Kinsey Andrew Martin. So what you're saying is that there are MOAs in place for this collaboration. And yeah, so on an early slide, there is a photo of Dave and I signing this document. Gosh, Dave, when did we sign that? It was in the pandemic, so it could have been yesterday or it
October.
could have been a year ago. It's the same to me.
That was last fall. I remember we were on a call talking about this earlier in the summer. President Peterson and both you and I jumped right on this, and this is some of the most important work. And I think we freaked our staff out a little bit, but they came together, pulled this together under a challenge cost share, and I believe you and I were able to meet late fall in a socially distanced way and sign this, what I think is a historic and excellent effort moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, our tribe has taken this pandemic extremely seriously. We've been working from home. This was one of the very few meetings where I was in person. Like you said, we social distanced and masked and everything. But this is so important to all of us. We showed up in person to sign that. And I think that was pretty amazing. From Patricia Alexander in Sitka, does the SSP address reliability of the Alaska Marine Highway as part of food security for our Southeast villages, communities? Ralph?
Yeah, we've worked with agencies and I can't remember the working group that was going on, but we had partnerships in that too. As of right now, we haven't done too much work on that, but it's definitely a priority, and it comes up working with like the Juneau Economic Development Council in the South, and I can't think of their name right now. The Southeast Conference, also Southeast Conference.
Great. So from Jacob Morrison, what about the trash being thrown onto the ocean floor where the sea animals live? You guys say you'll do something about it, but more and more trash is ending up on the ocean floor, and our votes count, not your guys' promises. Well, I'm not sure how to answer that then if you don't want our promises, but I'll give you our word. And I'll let Ray talk a little bit about efforts from our Native Lands and Resources Department to do cleanup and monitoring and things. Ray?
Well, yeah, just to add, I mean, to talk on that a bit, you know, again, as a tribe, we're not what we're trying to do is to help build the capacity of other tribes within the region, as well as ourselves, to actually be able to address these issues while we don't have the authority as a federal or a state, the state does, or even a municipality. As you know, tribes in Alaska are unique in that way. We're still trying to build our capacity and develop our resources to be able to address those issues. And a lot of it, you know, is a funding aspect. Unfortunately, we're not always the richest tribes to be able to do these things, but if we can collaborate together, in a meaningful way, we can find ways to accomplish those goals to meet those issues.
Great, thanks. I know, Ralph, you have to step away. I just want to thank you for joining us today and the work that you're doing. I understand questions from Jacob and some of the tone. Some of it's been earned over the years, absolutely. And all I can say is, judge me by my actions today. And I think we're really trying to make a difference and do these things. It's sincere. It's not platitude. It's not just to be heard. We're trying to integrate more and more every day to do more, to have a greater impact, and I think we are. And I think Sealaska, folks have their criticisms, but Sealaska's come a tremendous amount of distance to walk their talk too. And I see it firsthand. And so I'm not afraid to speak up and support that, because, you can criticize what's gone on, or you can see what's happening. And I think there's a real change just in Indigenous leadership. And I don't mean corporations or tribes, I mean Indigenous leadership. Our voices are getting louder and louder. We're getting more active, and we're trying to be the change that we need, because all of us, I don't know, Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Just one quick one on that. I'm agreeing with your theme there, but one I would add is spruce root and SSP. One of the fundamental tenets there is a triple bottom line thinking. That's sort of the whole point, that the organization was somewhat born out of conservation groups that have all that in mind. And as the Indigenous partners, we're pulling in more resources, more energy. So we're agreeing with the comment and the need, but we're also, it's just built into all the work that everybody's doing through Spruce Root and SSP to try to tackle those issues. So it's much more, it's not about the bottom line. It's about, the triple and quadruple bottom line, and the planet is the thing we're trying to take care of along with our communities.
Thanks. There's some comments still in the chat on the Facebook Live. I recommend everybody go look at those. I think they're impactful and meaningful. I think that wraps up our questions. I just would turn to our folks and just say, if you'd like to have any last words, I'll start with Dave.
Yes, thank you so much, President Peterson, and certainly Raymond and Ray and Joe and Ralph for your leadership here as well today. I guess I would close with a couple of things. I think President Peterson, you shared, at one point that this has been a dream of yours for quite some time, entering into this partnership, and I would say it has been for me as well. I'm starting to looking at more gray hair when I'm on camera these days, but I'm going into 40 years here service in the with the Forest Service, and I think of all of the work that I've done and accomplished, this is likely some of the most important, if not the most important step that I've taken for me personally and professionally here. This is something that has evolved. As I said, this is a step. I think it is the right step. It's the first step, again, with many more to come. And I just can't say how much, President Peterson, I've appreciated your leadership, your friendship over time, and how important this is. And I can't think of like I said, in the twilight of my career and others, that we can really make a difference looking forward through this this step. And so thank you so much for the invite, and really look forward to where we go from here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You know, I have to just personally comment. I've known Dave for 20 plus years. He was the forest ranger for in my, Kasan, and I can tell you, I wasn't an easy tribal leader to deal with if you're, in the federal government, because I held you to the fire. And Dave really is a man of his word. And I didn't find a lot of folks who kept their word. And he's old school. When he said it, he meant it. And he lived up to that. And I was really excited when you came back in this role. Your predecessor and I had a really great relationship too. So, but I can't say that for a tremendous amount of folks that, in the federal leadership roles that I've had to deal with. And you really did prove yourself out to be a man of your word. And I just want to say, I appreciate that. And we still hold each other accountable. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's that mutual respect. We can do that. Joe, any last words?
Just a closing on acknowledging the healing power of the land and the ocean, and the wisdom of our grandparents that comes with that, and understanding that, and really appreciating your leadership there, President Peterson, with the tribe, and moving bravely into a new world, which is really our old world that we've always been in, and embracing our competitive advantage, and that we've always been here, and will continue to be here. And we really do generally look to our local village tribes and corporations to come to the table and help us all get this to the next level.
Great. Thank you, Joe. And, again, this really, the work on the ground, what we're doing would not be possible without the support of Sealaska in this. They've really stepped up. They've really been, I think, trying to be a part of the solution in this area. And again, Joe, say the same words I said to Dave. We hold each other to the fire. And, I know when Joe gives me his word, it means something, and we're working together collaboratively to be the change. And I think that's, I have no problem with our citizens and shareholders holding us accountable. That's what you should be doing. And we should be open to being held accountable. And I think Joe walks his talk there. And I just want to tell you, Joe, I appreciate working with you, because I know when you tell me and you give me your word, we get a lot done. So good, Joe.
I just hit the wrong button. I was giving you a thumbs up. But, I'm with you, and I'm with you on our people too. It's love that's coming, and it comes in different forms from everybody, but it's all because we love this place. So I welcome it as well.
Thank you. Ray, you got any last words?
Yeah, just to thank all of you guys on the panel for the words that you're saying, for the partnership that we've got going on, this exciting new time. I wanted to rewind really quickly and just add too, one of the key pieces I think we forgot in adding key partners to this relationship is municipalities. I think having municipalities involved in this partnership is going to help us localize our economies, which is something that we really need to do, and help develop food security within the region as well. As you know, Southeast Alaska is a very isolated area in the world. And to help that food security, I think it's also going to take our local municipalities participating in this partnership. And also just to add to that, as far as education and comments in regards to the Guardians program, the Tlingit and Haida's Native Lands and Resources Department also hosts our annual Southeast Environmental Conference that has tribes, federal agencies, state agencies, and organizations from around the region talking about and addressing environmental and natural resource issues within Southeast Alaska. And it's been a platform we use to talk about Guardians and get people involved. So I just want to put that back out there as well. And again, thank you all for your comments and your partnership and your work.
Yeah. Well, Ray, I couldn't be prouder of the work you do. I get to see it firsthand. You and your department under leadership of Desiree Duncan have really been contributing to the solution, working with our tribes and other partners. And, you know, I think if you're tuned in, you know, reach out, tell us how we can make sure that you're not overlooked and included, because I think we're doing some pretty good work, and we can certainly always learn and do better. But, you know, I'm really proud of our staff. They really put their heart into this, and, you know, Ray's knowledge, his expertise, and his partnerships really give us the leg up in what we're doing. So appreciate that. Again, I want to thank everybody for this panel. I think it was a powerful conversation. You know, I think I hear you loud and clear about inclusivity. We need to hear from you, our people, on what we can and should be doing. You know, you have powerful voices that we don't want to get in the way of. That's not our goal. So, you know, reach out, help us, help you, help us. And today's, let me get to pull up our today's winners for door. Oh my goodness. I did not rig this. So our door prize winners for Hydro Flask, Paula Shedlowski Peterson, my mother. So, and then for a t-shirt, Kate Fontana. So if you ladies will send us a private message with your address, we'll get you your prizes. I'm probably going to hear endless grief about my mother winning, but hey, she's a tribal citizen. And so congratulations, Mom. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for our partnerships supporting and hosting these Native Issues Forums, Sealaska and Tlingit Haida Regional Housing Authority. If you have an entity that would like to help sponsor these, feel free to reach out. Thank you all. Be well, and you know, do what you can to stay safe. We'll see you at the next Native Issues Forum. Bye.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
You.